When I was growing up, summer evenings had their own kind of rhythm. After dinner, no one sent out invitations and no one checked a calendar. Nobody announced, "It is time." People just kind of drifted toward the front porch. A screen door would creak open, and someone would carry out a lawn chair, and a glass of lemonade would suddenly appear. And before long, someone walking by would stop by for a minute. Then another neighbor would wander over, and someone else would pull up a chair. Children chased each other around the yard while the grown-ups talked about everything and nothing. They talked about the weather. They talked about the garden. They talked about the new baby down the street and the recent high school graduates that were heading off to college. They would muse about whether the tomatoes were going to make it this year. You know, nothing particularly remarkable. And yet, as I look back, I think something remarkable did happen. Because without realizing it, we were building a community, one conversation at a time. And I wonder if sometimes we underestimate the power of simply being present. Just being there. Not trying to solve anything, not trying to fix anything, not trying to impress anyone, but just being there. And front porches had a way of teaching that lesson. You didn't have to earn your place there. You belonged because, you lived nearby. Because someone knew your name, because you happened to be walking by at just the right moment. There was a generosity to those evenings. People shared stories freely. They shared advice, maybe sometimes a little too freely. They shared fresh vegetables from their garden and a laugh that could be heard halfway down the block. Sometimes they shared silence, and that's important too. And as I've thought about those front porch evenings, I realized that some of the most important lessons I ever learned were not taught in a classroom. They came from listening to ordinary people talk about ordinary life. I learned that kindness usually sounds unhurried, that wisdom rarely raises its voice, and that people, so many people, carry burdens that we usually don't know anything about. I learned that encouragement can be as simple as saying, "It's good to see you." Well, as time goes on, I really appreciate those conversations. Not because every opinion was right. It definitely wasn't. And not because everyone agreed, because they certainly didn't. But because people had learned something we are in danger of losing. They knew how to disagree without deciding they were enemies. They knew how to listen. They knew how to laugh at themselves. And perhaps most important, they knew that people matter more than being right. I don't think front porch wisdom was really about porches. I think front porch wisdom was about making room for one another. making room for someone who's lonely, making room for the newcomer, or for the neighbor who had experienced a tough week, for the older couple who had seen enough of life to remind the rest of us that, somehow things usually work out. Those evenings had no agenda. They didn't have a PowerPoint presentation. And they had no expectation that every conversation needed to change the world. And maybe that's why they often did. One heart at a time. One friendship at a time. One neighbor at a time. And gradually one neighborhood at a time. And I think sometimes we've confused being connected with actually connecting. We have more ways to communicate now than ever before. Yet so many of us wonder if anyone truly knows us. Maybe what we're missing isn't another app, or another notification, or another place to hurry off to. Maybe what we're missing is a front porch. Not necessarily one made of wood and white railings, though those are really nice. But a place in our lives where people feel welcome. That place could be a kitchen table. It could be a park bench. It could be a walk around the neighborhood, a favorite coffee shop, a couple of chairs in the backyard. Just anywhere people can slow down long enough to become neighbors instead of strangers. Because, something beautiful happens when we stop rushing. We begin noticing each other again. We notice the smile that we've passed a dozen times without seeing. We notice the person who seems quieter than usual. We notice the child eager to show someone a newly mastered cartwheel or somersault. We notice that older gentleman who always waves, and that young mother who's just doing her best. Or that friend who has been waiting for someone to ask, "How are you?" Really. Those moments rarely make the evening news. But I believe that that's how love most often enters our lives. Not through grand gestures, but just through ordinary people making ordinary space for each other. Conversation after conversation, smile after smile, wave after wave, and neighbor after neighbor. Now, I don't know if front porches will ever again become what they once were. And maybe they don't need to. But remember, the wisdom they offer has never truly disappeared. It's waiting wherever two people decide to slow down, to listen, to laugh, to remember each other's names, to become part of one another's stories. So, hopefully, sometime this week, instead of hurrying inside, stay outside for a few extra minutes. Wave to someone walking by. Pull up another chair, ask one more question. Listen a little longer. You may never know what that small moment and gesture of kindness means to someone else or to you. After all, the world rarely changes all at once. But I do know and believe that it still changes. One friendly conversation at a time. Thanks for being here, and I'm glad you found your way to the quiet between. My name is Mark Ammons, and until the next time, make room in your life for wonder. Make room in your life for others. And look to discover that some of life's richest moments begin with something as simple as, "Come, sit with me for a while."